Can we walk?
Today we visit Rama Reserve, a community of 500 Indians on the eastern shore of Lake Couchiching. Big Chief Island on Lake Couchiching is part of the Rama Indian Reserve. On it is an ancient burial ground, and members of the Ojibwe band often visit the site where many of their ancestors are buried. Chief Norman Stinson and Peter Franks guide us to the site.
Sacred to the memory of Elizabeth, the beloved wife of the Reverend Robert Brookins. Occasionally, at one time or another, each band member, or most of the band members, come out here to look over this old burial grounds. Because as a child, I remember one of the last persons to be buried here. We followed the whole procession down to the waterfront, and the whole procession came across by canoes, boats of all sorts, and some were even swimming. But this is quite a few years back, and now that there's a cemetery located right on the village proper, now we have our burials there. But however, this area here to us is still a sacred area. We still visit it, and we're respected very much.
Norma, I wondered, I've been looking, this is a Christian burial ground. Is there a place somewhere in Rama where before the missionaries came, this is the wife of a missionary, Robert Brookins. Is there some place where people were buried before the missionaries?
No, we came over to this area here around the 1800s, middle 1800s, and we didn't have a burial ground prior to the Christian area here.
Oh, I see.
We were originally located in the areas of the Medina Township, the Coldwater, Warminster areas. So we divided up with the three bands, the Christian Island band to their respective areas at Georgina Island, and we to this area here.
Hmm. So this reserve has been Christianized quite a while. How much of the old tradition is still alive?
Well, quite a bit yet. People are just coming back into there. Mind you, it's a thing that most reserves almost died away, but they're working at it now to revive the old traditions, the customs, and so on. One of the points of the past was the fact that our Ojibwe burials were quite similar to the Christian burials, and in that we had our own burial grounds and so on. And one of the aspects of the early Christian, I'd say, intrusion into the way of life of the Indian of the areas was the fact that they responded very favorably to the Christian movement, and this is a primary example of the whole thing, I think, is when they erected great stones and cairns such as this here to the memory of the Reverend or his immediate family. And while they themselves would have probably just a stick or a piece of board sticking out of the ground to mark their graves, they honored the Christian movement in that time, and to that respect. And I think in this time now that as you look at these old stones here, it just brings to mind the tremendous values that these people had in those days, you know. And I think it's a wonderful memorial to the way that our people lived, and it actually points to the way they lived at one time.
The values that the people held quite a few years ago in this era, I guess you could call it, 1932, 1800s, were so great, but you wonder what's happened to them, and what was the religion before, the Christian religion. And nowadays, for the younger people who are interested in finding their old ways, it's almost impossible, because our oldest people were Christians. They were Christianized people. And it's hard to find what actually went on before that era. Go to powwows nowadays, even though they are a commercial show for people, you could see younger people now taking part in powwows, learning the old songs, the dances, and it's growing every year. There's more people desiring, I guess is the word, to go back to the traditional ways. Not to go back and live in teepees or anything like that, but to just to bring back the old values and try to apply them to today's standards.
Well, this particular section of the island is a peaceful area in the surrounding, and we've tried our best to maintain this atmosphere here. And although we've had, and we've also had some intrusions by snowmobiles driving across here in the wintertime and damaging some of the old markings, and this upsets us quite extensively, because we, like I said, we've tried to maintain this peaceful atmosphere here and maintain this for the future, because as you notice, the island, it's particularly on this east side here, as we approach it, it's got beautiful beach areas, and naturally, I imagine it's very valuable to other people. And we've been approached by a different number of outside agencies that would like to come in and develop this, change the whole face of the area. But our idea of a development would be to maintain our small land base that we have and develop what areas that are more accessible and keep this for the future. Because I think the value that we've placed on this thing is not only for our own generation here, but the future generations, when our children and their children's children will know the value that we placed on the land that we hold. And I'm hoping that subsequent councils that follow in our footsteps will maintain the same idea. You know, it's an area, a day in the age of high development, and great plans are being laid for everybody, particularly in different types of government. But I think this area here will be maintained by our band and our people and preserved for the future.
Black ash is used by the Indians to make baskets. A great deal of effort goes into carrying the trunks out of the swamp. It's a case where the whole cycle of manufacture has to be followed through, from raw material to finished product, a practice that has long been abandoned in highly industrialized communities. The next step is to pound the ash so that its fibers will part more readily. After the ash is properly pounded, the wood strips that are to be used for basket weaving will peel off more easily. Basket weaving has lost some of its popularity, and not many Indians are engaged in it. But the older people in the band still remember the time when, during early morning hours, the woods echoed with the sound of axes pounding away. It is a familiar sound to them and very much a part of daily living. Basket weaving is a skill that's passed on from father to son. It's not pursued as a hobby here. The families engaged in this ancient craft are making a living by it. The baskets are sold for commercial use, such as fruit marketing, or to individual buyers. Another traditional Indian craft is working with beads. Mrs. Simcoe and her family are highly skilled in decorating with beads. They make up their patterns and designs as they go along, and it's painstaking work since the beads used here are very small. Many hours of work goes into making an object of adornment, such as a headband. Another material that is found in the local woods and is used for craft purposes is sweetgrass.
We have some people in the reserve here that are quite interested yet in creating with their own hands the handicrafts that you see for sale in different shops and different centers. One of the things I'd like to point out is that when you see these items for sale, sometimes you think it's an easy job to do these things. However, again, I'd like to point out it's quite difficult because they have to gather their own material, go into the swamps, the bushes, to find their particular tree, and once they've selected that, they cut it down and make it into lengths that they can handle. And sometimes they have to walk about 1 or 2 miles or maybe farther to get these things, and or maybe drive quite a distance. And then when they get it home, it's not finished there. They have to work at it, and you see some of the difficult work that's involved in performing this. And so it's not an easy thing to make handicrafts. It's a long, tedious job, and I think, and the way I look at it, the rewards are very few, except for the fact that you know you've created something with your own hands.
something, some room for today's child. I don't know exactly where.
Slip it in here someplace.
I've got to go towards the middle pretty well. Maybe with the winners of that contest.
Well, here we are at the, excuse me, folks, I'm sorry. We're at the Colrade offices now on Atherley Road, not too far from Aurelia. And this office is the office of Colrade, which is an Indian organization formed about 4 or 5 years ago. And it deals mostly in communications, the social economic development of Indian people in central Ontario. We have quite a large area to cover, which extends from Magnetawan in the north down as far as here in Rama. A couple of reserves out on the Bruce Peninsula, and then east as far as Cornwall. So it's a rather large area to cover communications-wise. We put out a newspaper. We also deal with half-inch videotape recording equipment. So we do productions on a reserve to take to other reserves, just so that the Indian people know what each other, what each community is doing. Philip Franks is in charge of the newspaper. He's the editor, and we were just going over some of the things that are going to be going into the next issue. And maybe we could talk a little bit about that.
Well, Colrade News is a community newspaper that serves the 17 reserves that Peter was talking about. We go to each reserve and try to pick up bits of news that would be interesting to other reserves. For instance, at the Rama Reserve, they formed a police force. Now, we would report that in quite a bit of depth, telling how they went about it, and hopefully another reserve would find that information useful in forming a police force for themselves. It's a small newspaper. It has generally 8 to 12 pages, and it comes out every month. Not only do we include news, but we have legends and stories, letters from people, and sports, and we have a subscription list for people who wish to read the paper that live in places other than reserves, and we send free bundles to each reserve that we serve. And that's about the whole wrap-up of the newspaper, very briefly anyway.
We have our own two-man police force here in Rama. It's been a long-time dream of ours to be able to have and manage our own policing. And I think one of their main duties will be to enforce our own band bylaws, control our lands, and also to enforce the Indian Act on our reserve. One of the objectives of our policing is to home in on our own problem areas that we're aware of, the things that we've seen over the years, and begin to control this. And I think the only basic way we can do that is to have our own policing. And this is what we've got now, and we intend to utilize this police force to its fullest extent and to control everything here. And we've seen it over the years there where problem areas have developed and we weren't able to do anything about it. But now we have it. We have the resources now to work with, and an excellent police force. We're just starting, mind you, but I think over the years it'll prove to be one of the most effective because we know what problems we encounter and we know how to solve them.
Happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, and you really want to show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, stamp your feet. If you're happy and you know it, stamp your feet. If you're happy and you know it, and you really want to show it. If you're happy and you know it, stamp your feet.
We have our daycare center here in Rama as well. One of the prime functions of it, of course, will be to allow our working families to get out and work, and that their children will have a place to learn. we foresaw this need when we were going into some sort of a industrial development, and so it was one of the prime reasons why we required and went after a daycare center in the Rama Reserve.
If you're tired and you know it, stretch your arms. Oh, hum. If you're tired and you know it, stretch your arms. If you're tired and you know it, and you really want to show it, if you're tired and you know it, stretch your arms. If you're happy and you know it, give a big smile.
We were just talking here in our own Ojibwe tongue here, Mr. Ranson Ingersoll and I was asking him about his age, what his age was, and he replied in Ojibwe that he was 64 years old. He's one of the few people in Rama that have maintained the Ojibwe tongue, and he talks it quite extensively, as does most of his family. And there are a number of people here that still converse fluently in Ojibwe, and I kind of feel at the time there we were losing this language. It's a great asset to these people. However, now in this at this time we're having some great courses in Native studies being compiled and put together by some very dedicated people. People that are dedicated to the preserving the historic, the cultural background of our Native people in this area. And it's quite, it's really interesting to know the tremendous amount of work that these people put into compiling this study course so that our young people don't lose this language. As I said before, it's a great asset. It's a way of life that if we lose the language, I think the whole language itself is the culture itself. If you lose the language, you lose everything else. And now we're working hard to preserve this, and it's a real privilege to be able to sit here with a gentleman like Mr. Ingersoll and to converse with him in our own native tongue, to talk about old things, old past, times past, the things that transpired here. He's amazed at the tremendous changes over the years that he's seen, the new housing developments, the different things that are happening here. At one time he explained that the houses were so widely scattered apart and all through the bush, the fields, but now they're more consolidated. This is, I guess, a modern day trend that we're following, and again I think it's just a move to preserve our land base, to get the maximum use of what little bit of land we have left that we can call our own.